The New York Islanders were blanked by the Dallas Stars Saturday in Dallas. We have our key takeaways from the game, some patterns we're noticing after two losses, and we preview tonight's game against the Colorado Avalanche. All that coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
Your Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to the Monday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you get new episodes as soon as they drop. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. We have got a lot to discuss on today's show, but first, if there's something Islanders related on your mind, if you have a question, a comment, maybe a topic you'd like us to discuss on a future show, just send us an email to lockedonislanders@gmail.com. And if you leave your first name and where you're from, we're happy to mention you on the show when we discuss whatever's on your mind. You can also follow the show on X at Locked On Isles, and you can follow me, Gil Martin, on X at Ice Wars, NYR VSNYI. We'll keep you up to date on all things Islanders all year long, and I am live tweeting during nearly every Islanders home and road game. So join me for some instant insight and analysis. Islanders fall Saturday night in Dallas to the Dallas Stars 3-0. And look, I'm going to come out and say it. There are two ways to look at the first two games of the season. Losing to Dallas in Dallas, especially for the Stars home opener, not an embarrassing thing. And you could say, the Islanders outplayed the Stars for portions of this game. You could talk about the fact that they were in this game until the very end. You had an empty net goal. So literally it was one goal in the first period, one goal in the second period, and then the empty netter. It wasn't a blowout by any stretch of the imagination. And, they certainly played better against Dallas than they did against Utah in the season opener last Thursday. But again, we are seeing some disappointing trends from this team that just give us the feeling that it's deja vu all over again. So many of the problems that we saw a year ago seem to be there all over again in the first two games of this season, and that may be why a lot of fans are very concerned. I'm going to say it is too soon to panic about this season. It's two games. But I'm also going to say this, the flip side. You can't, under any circumstances, allow these bad habits to become the identity of this team again this year. What did we see against Dallas more than anything? Giveaways, sloppy play in your own zone. Throughout the entire game, the Islanders were credited, and you can put credited in air quotes. They gave the puck away 20 times in the game. That is just not going to get it done. 3 by Bo Horvat. 3 by Casey Cizikas, 4 by Mike Riley, and Riley only played 15 minutes and 53 seconds, the least of any defenseman in the Islanders lineup. Definitely had more problems with Noah Dobson and his defense. The power play obviously only had one chance, didn't produce many scoring chances, didn't look particularly sharp, but hey, a little good news, the PK better than it was. They killed off both opportunities that the Stars had. But again, seeing this team do some of the same things that they did a year ago that cost them, whether it was the losing the third period leads on Thursday in the season opener, the giveaways, the bad penalty kill, all of these familiar problems just seem to come back and haunt the New York Islanders in the first two games of the season. And you just don't want to see that happening. I mean, the top line continues to produce offensive chances. Horvat 4 shots on goal. Duclair and Barzal each had 1, but again, there was definitely some opportunities there, but not being able to finish those opportunities. Another one of the things we saw last year that hurt this team over the course of the season. So, during the offseason, Lou Lamoriello made some limited moves. And that's all he could do if he wanted to keep the core together. And yeah, you don't bring back Cal Clutterbuck and Matt Martin and, Sebastian Aho was kind of a seventh defenseman. Robert Bortuzzo was kind of a seventh defenseman. The guys who they didn't bring back were, for the most part, I'm not going to say spare parts, but they were, for the most part, guys who were not part of the top 6 forwards or the top 4 defensemen. And they made the limited amount of moves they could without trading away some cap space. But that also means that the core of this team is the same. And the one thing this team has to prove beyond the shadow of a doubt, and they've got to do it early in the season, they've got to prove that they are not the same old Islanders, that having Maxime Siplikov and having Anthony Duclair and having Patrick Waugh behind the bench for the first time, from day one, all of those things have to be things that make a difference. The penalty kill has to be better. The team has to shoot a little bit more. The power play has to click. There has to be more cohesiveness. Now, I am not saying by any stretch of the imagination that after 2 games, the sky is falling. It's not. But you've got to be better than this team was against the Dallas Stars. And, you want to do like hero and goat of the game from Saturday night's contest. And it's tough because, who was the hero? You didn't score. I could go with Varley, 24 saves in 26 shots. I could give a nomination to Kyle McLean for winning 8 out of 11 faceoffs. That's big for him and his development. He also had 3 hits, which happened to have led the Islanders. But overall, there just wasn't a lot of greatness to hang your hat on. I mean, they were playing relatively equally to the Dallas Stars, but the difference was the Stars knew how to finish and the Islanders did not. So, hero of the game, I'm going with Varley more or less by default. And for go to the game, because neither of the goals he gave up were soft, and for go to the game, I'm going with the team's defensive coverage because Noah Dobson, again, -2 in this game, not really able to get back defensively, and it affected the Islanders on a couple of goals where he, again, gets caught up ice. And how many times do you have to say it? Dauber doesn't have to be a great defensive defenseman, but he's got to be smart. He's got to at least know what to do and be in the right position. He's going to get beat sometimes. He's not the biggest guy. He's not the most physical guy. He's, not the strongest guy. So Dobson is never going to be a shutdown defenseman, and I don't think the Islanders want him to be because that would sacrifice what he can do offensively. But he can't be this big of a liability. And yeah, it's only 2 games. So yeah, you can't panic, but you got to be prepared you got to improve these areas that remain problematic. The penalty kill was better. That was a little bit encouraging, but overall, the same mistakes that we saw too often in game 1 came back and were the same mistakes that we see again in game 2. And if you're the New York Islanders, that just isn't good enough. So, let's see this team do better. Hats off, first of all. Hats off to Jake Ottinger, who played a great game. But the Islanders overall, they were not bad, but not good enough. And now is the time for this team to rally and get better. Let's hope we can start to see some of that tonight in Denver when they take on the Avalanche. We have got more to get to on today's show. We're going to talk a little bit more about some things this team needs to improve upon. Plus, we will preview tonight's game against the Avs. And for our Islanders' birthday of the day, a defenseman who was with the Islanders in the mid to late 2000s, more of a power play specialist with a really good shot. Let's see if you can guess who that is. We've got that and more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Hims. Guys, sometimes intimate moments happen spontaneously, and we always want to be ready so we can perform in the bedroom. Hims provides access to treatments that can help you stay hard and last longer, giving you that boost of confidence so you can be ready whenever the mood strikes. Hims is changing men's health care by providing you with access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your couch. The process is 100% online, so there's no need for uncomfortable doctor visits. Just answer a series of questions on their site, and a medical provider will determine the right treatment option. If prescribed, your medication ships directly to you in discreet packaging for free. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/lockedon. That's HIMS.com/lockedon for your personalized ED treatment options. hims.com/lockedon. The products mentioned are chewable compounded products which are not approved by or verified for safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and prescription plan. So, again, we're seeing this team kind of struggle. And, again, 2 games doth not a season make. There is no way that this Islanders team is all of a sudden going to give up. I mean, they got 1 point in the 2 games, and that's all well and good. But, again, this team just has to be better, and it doesn't get any easier with 2 more road games against some teams that are, good teams and that are hungry teams. So we got to talk about that as well. And the Islanders, it really, you want to see. The one thing I think that disappointed me the most in the first 2 games is that because Patrick Roy has been there since day 1, you were expecting that the Islanders would play a crisper game, that they wouldn't make the same mistakes in their own zone as frequently as the team did a year ago, that they would know what they needed to do from the get-go. It is difficult for a coach to come in midseason. You don't get a lot of practice time. You don't get a lot of time with the team because of the travel and the game schedule and everything else. Now there's no excuse, and we really were hoping to eliminate some of those mistakes. And the fact that in the first 2 games we didn't see that is disappointing. Now, again, 2 games, small sample size, but bottom line, the team needs to be better. And hopefully we will see that happen really soon for the New York Islanders. Couple of little notes, by the way, real quick. Cole Bardreau named captain down in Bridgeport. So we'll again have our weekly farm report on Wednesday, but just wanted to let everybody know that that is the captain. And by the way, Cole Eiserman, if you didn't see it, check it out. Look on YouTube. Eiserman scoring a goal against Union College that looked amazing in the sense that he batted, playing for BU, literally great hand-eye coordination, batted the puck into the goal out of midair. Was not a high stick, but Eiserman kind of looking like the real deal. 10 shots through 2 games. So he's definitely shooting the puck, and it is good to see Cole Eiserman doing his thing for the New York Islanders this early. One other thing, for BU, but as an Islanders prospect, one other thing, you got to wonder, after the Islanders were shut out by the Dallas Stars and have struggled defensively, is Patrick Roy going to look to change the line combinations a little bit? I think he should. I think putting Julien Gauthier in the lineup is not a bad idea. He adds some speed, and speed was clearly an issue against Utah in the season opener. And, one other thing that we saw in both games so far this year. Nobody seems to know how and when to pick up players in the slot, in the deep slot. It just seems like if a guy goes to that area of the ice, they are going to be able to be open for a one-timer or for a shot. And, you can't blame the goalie for that. It just isn't the goalie's fault. But whether it's, we talked about Noah Dobson's shakiness in his own zone. A couple of times he got trapped up ice. That's going to happen occasionally with a offensive-minded defenseman, but you got to pick and choose your spots. But the other thing is, when somebody goes into that slot area, whether it's the center or a forward who's going to cover the player, or whether it's the defenseman, somebody's got to be aware that there's a player in that high danger area and fill the void. And even if the puck does end up on their stick, they should not have the time and space to just let a shot go and easily score a goal. How many goals in the first 2 games did we see that happen? It just happened far too many times for comfort. And it is time for the New York Islanders to start cleaning things up. I would not be surprised, to say the least, to see Patrick Roy make some kind of a line change in some way to get this team going. And not just a lineup change where I think Gauthier could very well be inserted into the starting lineup, but I think line combinations may be juggled, especially if the New York Islanders get off to a bit of a slow start offensively against Colorado, because let's face it, you got shut out. You can't afford to start squeezing those sticks and just making it even tougher for the team because they aren't confident in the way they're playing the game. All right, we've got more to get to on today's show. We'll preview tonight's game against the Colorado Avalanche. We'll have our Islanders' birthday of the day. We've got that and a lot more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by your friends at FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you could start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you could check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more, all on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed, that's win or lose, when you place your first $5 bet. And October is the best month on the sports calendar. Baseball playoffs, Mets and Yankees both alive. You got college and pro football in full swing. Hockey is back and underway. Basketball preseason is underway. Check out all the latest odds at FanDuel, including the odds for tonight's Islanders Avalanche game. So, $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Thank you for making Locked On Islanders your first listen today. For your second listen, find Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Become a fantasy hockey expert and get the edge over your league mates with daily tips from Steal and Flip. Find Locked On Fantasy Hockey on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Islanders, Avalanche, tonight in Denver. Not an easy opponent, and yet we know that the Colorado Avalanche are struggling at this early stage of the year. So is this the best or the worst time to catch the Colorado Avalanche? And the big problem for the Avs so far, and again, it's only been 2 games, but in 2 games, Colorado has given up 14 goals. That ranks them dead last in the NHL. Alexander Georgiev has a goals against average of 7.75 through a game plus. And his backup, Justice Anunin, not looking so good either. A 4.69 goals against and a 7.65 save percentage. And under no circumstances do I expect this to continue. They are a better team than that. But, either the Islanders are going to catch them when they're struggling, which is entirely possible. I mean, they just lost 6-4 to the Columbus Blue Jackets in Denver, but they also could catch them really angry and determined to break out of their slump. Hopefully it's the former, but it very well could be the latter. Special teams, it's feast or famine, the power play, so much talent on the power play. They already have 3 power play goals in 2 games. They have the top-ranked power play in the league at 42.9% success rate. Again, very small sample size, but the PK only killing off 50% of their penalty kills. That's 29th in the league. Not particularly what you'd expect from the Avalanche. The line combinations for Colorado at this point, and injuries are a factor, by the way, in their slow start. But the ever dangerous Nathan MacKinnon, centers Nikolai Kovalenko and Mikko Rantanen. That is one of the best first lines in hockey. Casey Middlestat, Ross Colton, and Calum Ritchie are the second line. Parker Kelly centers Miles Wood and Logan O'Connor on the third trio. And then you have Chris Wagner, Joel Kiviranta. Those 2 are on the play along with Ivan Ivan. So you've got a pretty interesting combination there on the fourth line. Devon Taves and Cale Makar, an elite top pairing. Sam Girard, Josh Manson are the second pair. And then former Islander, along with Taves, you have Calvin DeHaan and Sam Malinsky. They have been the third pair. We mentioned Georgiev and Anunin in goal. The injuries, well, Gabriel Landeskog still on IR, as is Tucker Poolman, Valerie Nichushkin, Arturi Letkinen, and Jonathan Drouin, all out but not on IR. We'll see whether or not any of them will be able to return in time to face the New York Islanders. Look, the Islanders against Colorado, against Cale Makar, Devon Taves, Nathan McKinnon, Mikko Rantanen. This team absolutely must be sound defensively, or the Avalanche will embarrass them. So it is past time for the Islanders to step up and play the kind of defensive hockey that Patrick Roy wants them to play. Because if they don't do it, I'm telling you, the Avs will score 4, 5, 6, 7 goals and make them look bad. And now the other question for the Islanders, and I'm wondering about this out loud. Do the Islanders go with Semyon Varlamov a third time? He would be facing one of his former teams. It's a homecoming for Varley, a homecoming for Patrick Roy. His first coaching job was in Colorado, in the NHL anyway. Or is Ilya Sorokin ready? Or do you wait on Sorokin for either Thursday's game in St. Louis or Saturday's game against Montreal? These are all questions that it is not easy for the Islanders to answer, but they've got to figure out who's going to start and how it's going to go. I think Varley plays again tonight, but again, we'll update you on X as soon as we know who the starting goalie is going to be. Islanders need a win. Let's face it, they need to reestablish their confidence. They need to get the season on the right track. They need a W. And let's see if Patrick Roy and this team can put it all together tonight against a struggling Avalanche team that defensively has been even worse than the New York Islanders. So can you get your offense going? Let's hope so. Time now for our Islanders birthday of the day, and Sunday was the 44th birthday of former Islanders defenseman Marc-Andre Bergeron. Bergeron, a Quebec, province of Quebec native, Three Rivers, 5'9", 198 pounds, undrafted, made his NHL debut in 02-03 with the Oilers, and then joined the Islanders midway through the 06-07 season. Started the 07-08 season with the Isles, then played for the Ducks, the Wild, the Canadiens, the Lightning, the Hurricanes, and then finished out his career in Switzerland and one more season in the AHL. Fleury had a great shot. He was great on the power play, not necessarily a great defensive defenseman, but I always liked what he could do with the puck. 490 career NHL games, 82 goals, 235 points, 214 penalty minutes, add 7 goals, 15 points in 57 playoff games. 5 of those, including 5 games, a goal and an assist, came with the Islanders in 2007. One of his better games as an Islander, March 3rd, 2007, the Islanders visiting our nation's capital to take on the Washington Capitals. In goal for the Islanders, Rick DiPietro, Brent Johnson starting for the Washington Capitals. And in the first period, our Islanders' birthday of the day, Marc-Andre Bergeron assists on a power play goal by Mike Sillinger. Tom Poti, the other assist. It's 1-0 Islanders. In the second period, with the Isles up 2-0, Bergeron scores his 10th goal of the season, also on the power play. Victor Kozlov and Tom Poti get the assists on that one. And in the third period, Ryan Smith scores to close out the scoring at 17:06. Marc-Andre Bergeron gets a helper along with Randy Robitaille. Islanders soundly defeat the Capitals 6-2. And in this game, our Islanders' birthday today, Marc-Andre Bergeron, a goal, 2 assists. That's a 3-point night, a +2. He scored the game winner, came on his only shot, and he was on the ice for 19 minutes and 22 seconds. So happy birthday to Marc-Andre Bergeron. He is our Islanders' birthday of the day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Everydayers, don't forget, tomorrow on the show, we'll have our key takeaways from tonight's game against the Avalanche, plus all the latest Islanders news, notes, and happenings. So make sure you join us for that. Until then, have a great day, everybody. Stay safe. And of course, let's go Islanders.